Hey everyone, Dr. Frunkey here with a new knife consult for you. This is the Reate Knives and Liong Mah Design GSD. Now that stands for Get Shit Done. Might as well just come out and say it. It says it right on the website. That's what it stands for. This knife is really made to be an EDC knife that is just basically good at everything it does. Really nice for slicing, really nice for heavier cutting tasks. It's really just designed to get it done and get it done effectively. Now there is a CRKT edition of the GSD that is a very different design from this. That one is considerably more affordable. That one is probably around $30. This one comes in at $425, and there's a good reason for that, and we'll talk about why. Namely that it comes from Reate Knives. Reate is a really high-end Chinese manufacturer. They are doing some amazing things. I have been really impressed recently with a number of their designs. I have another video coming up on the K1 coming soon. This is a great knife, and I've really enjoyed carrying this. I've had the Epoch on here. I've had the Torrent. I've had the Future. I've had a bunch of their really nice knives. This one is on the sort of more EDC side of things, not so showy or anything like that, and I think that it succeeds in that regard. But there's one major problem with this that makes me not want to recommend the knife to anyone, and we'll get into that. So let's go ahead and break this knife down anatomically so we understand what we're working with here. Up front we've got a 3.25-inch blade of CPM S35 VN. S35 is a great steel. It is always ready to go. You can see it printed right there, S35 VN. And they have done a beautiful machine satin finish. All the lines are perfectly milled, including the top swedge. It's got a hand-rubbed satin finish on the flats. They do their own hand-rubbed satin there. Super beautiful blade. And at this 3.25-inch, sorry, the camera's trying to focus here. At this 3.25-inch size, this is very carry-friendly. Now notice how the swedge is ground so that it doesn't go all the way out to the tip. It does, however, have a very thickened tip. I'll see if I can get that to focus at all on there. So it's got a considerable amount of material that goes all the way out to the tip to keep it very sturdy. One point of contention on the blade here is going to be this sort of spidey hole type thing, this finger hole that's going on here. Now it does offer a couple of different ways to open the knife. You can slip your thumb in there if you're really careful. Maybe I can get it. It's a little bit harder to do that because when you're reaching over there, you're kind of pushing on the lock bar. And what it really is probably made for is the spider flicking, which it does do pretty well. Now, the problem that I have with this is that it's still extremely sharp on the edges of the inside here. Let me see if I can show that to you at all. It's not rounded off at all on these lips right here, and so it's rather sharp when I'm putting my fingernail in there. You know, arguably that gives you a lot of traction, but it's a little bit uncomfortable. And just then when I was trying to open it with my thumb, it's also pretty sharp on my thumb. Moreover, it kind of makes this very thin bridge of material, particularly right here, where the jimping is sort of ground down to meet the rest of the blade. I just feel like that's a weak point. And sure, this steel is very strong, but you know, I feel like that's a weak point. I just perceive it in that way, and I just can't help but think about that. Speaking of the jimping, it is very aggressively ground here. They almost look like saw blades right there. I've never seen jimping done like that. It's a little bit overly aggressive. This is really meant as an EDC knife, not really necessarily a hard use knife. And that's a very aggressive set of jimping that's rather uncomfortable. If you were wearing gloves maybe, but this knife doesn't look like it was really designed for wearing gloves. And the main reason is the flipper tab as well. And we'll go ahead and move on back to the pivot and flipper tab deployment here. This is going to be my biggest gripe with this knife, is the flipper tab. Now, I appreciate that it is very small and subtle, and so it doesn't really take away from the design of the knife. It's also hidden upon deployment there, so it's very subtle. I do like that design element, but there's an engineering flaw that I've never really seen on any other knife, and I'm going to go ahead and show it to you here. So what I want you to see is the location of where the flipper tab is, and then as I open the knife, the locking mechanism are these stop pins, which come in and stop right there. they actually stop behind the point where the flipper tab is. Now, I've never seen that on any other flippers, so I'm going to bring out a whole bunch of them here. I've got a Reich knife right here. This one, the stopping point is in front of the flipper, and so, yeah, that's there. Here's a Browse Insight, same thing, stop pin. Let's see, I've got the Fisher Knives Talon. There's an internal stop pin, so but the blade stops, you know, in front of where the flipper tab is on there. Again and again and again, you see this. Keep bringing more knives out to show that off here. So here's where the flipper tab is, and that's where the blade ends up. Flipper tab is behind where the blade comes out. Let's pull out this Sharp by Design work here. Same thing. So why do I keep showing this? On all other knives, the flipper tab is behind where the blade ends up, and this creates a serious flaw with this knife that really bugs me, and I'm going to show it to you right now. This is a very small flipper tab, and so I am inclined to kind of push on it a little bit, and what it does is it pushes my finger back and it pinches my finger, and it's rather uncomfortable, and if I choke up like this, the blade doesn't even fire. Literally, I can stop the blade because it's hitting my finger right there. I have never experienced that on any other knife, and I really always want to have my finger there, and it's almost always blocking it, and it's always getting bitten by the blade. Every time I open the knife, I feel it pushing on me, and with this aggressive jimping, it slides up on there a little, and it's uncomfortable. So I'm really not a fan of that. That's really an engineering flaw, I feel like, in this knife, and I've never seen it on any other knife. So that's my major gripe with it. Now, it is very smooth. Reate Knives does make a very smooth flipper. It's on ball bearings, ceramic ball bearings. Super smooth opening and closing, and you know, I really appreciate that about it. At least it closes nicely. Let's go ahead and move back to the handles. This is my favorite part of the knife. After griping about it, let me show you my favorite part. They've done this orange peeling. Oh, my camera's not wanting to focus on it because of the light, but the orange peel finish on this knife is absolutely beautiful. The titanium here has been orange peeled all the way around, including the back spacer. It's a very nicely done finish, very uniform, very nice texture to it. I am a huge fan of that. I think that looks awesome. And then, of course, you have these really beautiful carbon fiber inlays right here. They've got a screw on either side to hold it in, and another one. Back here, you can see that there's a spot for a reversible pocket clip. That's pretty nice to those lefties out there, so kudos for that. It's got a nice 3D milled titanium pocket clip. It's got just the right amount of spring. Reate really does a good job with their milled clips. It works just fine. It's very pretty. It works nicely, and it is reversible, like I said. It's got a full titanium back spacer with a little bit of jimping here. Provides a little bit of grip, and it's not overly aggressive, which is nice considering they made this a little bit too aggressive. And of course, it's a frame lock. Well, realistically, it's a bolster lock. So they've done just another step of technique here by making it a bolster lock, milling away that titanium, and having the frame contact the blade like that. There is a lock bar insert that's subtly inside of there. So you have steel on steel meeting up there, and that's really nice. So I have been carrying this knife for a few weeks now. It's a wonderful carry. It's pretty lightweight for how stout it is, 4.1 ounces, so super carryable. And it is nice and strongly built. So we can bring out some other knives for a size comparison. So at 3.25 inches, I've got a Grayman Dua right here. It's also a 3.25 inch blade. That's got a 3-inch cutting edge right there. Here's a 3.25 inch knife in the Robert Carter and Frank Fisher Talon right there. I brought this knife out earlier, the Nadeau Mini Typhoon, also a 3.5 inch blade right there. I've got a 0392, also a 3.5 inch blade. So nice and sturdy and thick, but a smaller blade. So I really like that. So what are sort of my final thoughts on this knife? I think that it was a good idea. I like the blade, I like the handle, I like the fit and finish, but there were some engineering flaws that I think make this a knife that I wouldn't really recommend to anyone, namely the flipper and this overly aggressive jimping and the hole in the blade. So not my favorite blade. Thanks for checking this video out, guys. Click like and subscribe. Go follow me on Instagram at Dr. Frunkey. And as always, guys, this is Dr. Frunkey saying take